Top of the morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this expanded local newscast. We stream to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton, and news brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters. Sunday was the deadline for local county governments to get in line with state regulations for wind and solar development. DeWitt County Board Chairman Dan Matthews indicates there is not a lot of area for local control with the new ordinances and anticipates because of that there could be quick applications for special use permits coming in.
Yeah, you're right about that. The new ordinances start May 21st. And so, as you said, they really supersede a lot of the work and the ordinances that we've been doing over the last few years. And we just don't have much choice as they push more wind and solar, especially in our area. So we have to change some of our ordinances to abide by the new state laws. I don't think there's a whole lot of wiggle room really with that. They're going to be coming. They're going to start new projects. I can see us getting very busy with SUP applications right after the 21st because it is much easier for wind and solar to come in and get their projects moving quicker. So I haven't seen anything that gives us a whole lot of space to do anything with our, local ordinances. But there is some things that, we're going to learn along the way to see what we can do as far as, maybe pushing the limits a little bit on what the state is asking, us to do.
Setbacks are an area the county has identified that is dialed in on that could offer some flexibility on where the state has stepped in. But Matthews notes one of the biggest changes in the applications for a special use permit is going to be the process of review for an application.
I think some of the setback issues, we might be able to do some things with that. At least we're hoping that we can. That's the one thing that I think is really important for the non-participating residents. And that's the key, really. We're going to do whatever we can for those that, are next to a participating lease holder. We want to make sure that we can do what we can for them. But I think, what you heard last night, too, one of the most important things was the changing in how the SUPs get approved. And instead of going through the process of RPC, ZBA, back to the board, and then potentially back through that whole avenue again with really no time limits on it, now we're going to be pushed to get those done. And Joe Whitty brought that up last night that I think the first window is 45 days and then a 30-day window after that, something along those lines. So if you remember before, we had months and months of hearings and, 2 votes, 2 different SUPs. You're not going to see that anymore.
Anticipating applications for solar and wind coming in with the change in state law, now all but effective, Matthews explains the county will want to identify good companies to work with for those inevitable projects.
We do. That is true. We live in Illinois, and we are seeing that we're getting fewer choices, especially in communities like that you just mentioned, DeWitt County, Piatt County, Logan County. They're pushing laws down and you don't see these projects popping up north of I-80. They're all coming down south, right? They don't want them in their area, but they want them in Illinois so that they get the benefit of saying they're green. And unfortunately, that falls on us. What we hope to do is that these partners, and I met with a company that's looking to do solar in DeWitt County, and is to get the right partners. So as we get multiple companies coming to us that want to do solar projects, we want to, hopefully they work with us and we find the right company to bring to DeWitt County. We know they're coming. So we need to do a little more legwork on the front end to make sure that we're going to find a partner that really cares about what they're doing, how they're going to work with the residents, those types of things that are going to make them, better partners. So that's a little different angle than just saying yes or no to a project. Is if they're coming, let's find the right partner for DeWitt County.
But finding the right company or companies for DeWitt County could leave others out of the circle of preference. Matthews indicates if they can find good partners early and allow them to develop, there likely won't be more development possible for other companies.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the things that may help us is, we can only put so much power out on the grid as it stands today. So you can't just keep adding wind, adding solar, without any restrictions because the grid can only handle so much power. So you want to try to get the best partners that you can to start with, take your allowance on the grid, from DeWitt County, and hopefully then we don't see some of the additional companies coming in just because they can now because it's easy, with the new state law.
Matthews indicates only one review of a special use application is allowed now, so multiple hearings over multiple months will be a thing of the past. He believes the county board should be the ones to hold those. We'll have more on that wrinkle in the legislation later this week on regional radio. Around the first of the year, the city of Lincoln received discouraging news that bids for a long-awaited expansion of 5th Street Road on the west side of town were way over budget. Lincoln Mayor Tracy Welch calls this the project that never ends, as they've been long looking to renovate and expand the road in a busy area of town. The city had plans for an expansive project until bids earlier this year came in disappointingly high.
This project that's never ended. It's been going on for 20 plus years. Due to the rising cost of materials here recently, that project we realized was, initially around a $3 million. Well, cost of materials bumped it to $8 million. So we had to really go back to the drawing board and say, hey, what can we get done to make an impact and be responsible with the money? And so, the redesign is going to involve, maybe not as wide on the road, fix the drainage issues, but some really good resurfacing of that road. So we got some paperwork to go through. We got to work with the engineers for the redesign and then put it in the hands of IDOT to tell us when we can start. But all is looking good. It started out as a resurfacing of that road, or actually a redo of that road. There was those that thought that'd be an industrial corridor, and there's some industrial stuff going on out there. But over the years, some thoughts have changed. The designs have been changed. It used to, when I came on the council in 2016, it had a bike path and was going to be widened out. Well, that's been significantly reduced in scope and design, as I mentioned. And so a lot of time was spent just trying to get the parcels of land surrounding that road to widen it out. We were very close there, got most of them, but then we were going to have to go back and renew some easements. And when the material costs just went through the roof, we're like, let's take a pause and then talk about what we can realistically get done.
According to Mayor Welch, since those bids came in very high, the city has done a reevaluation of where it is at financially, what possible state matching dollars they might lose out on, and what are the utmost priorities for the road.
Well, so we've been talking with the engineers, and we also had another issue that we had to get worked out. The city went through a RFP to get a new engineer, and we do have an engineer CMT, but we said, you know what, we're not going to impact this project. We got good engineers on it right now. So we had to work through that. So now we've got those engineers, but also when those high estimates came in, we had to go back and look at the amount of funding that we had acquired on different levels. And we had to start asking questions. Hey, if we shut this project down and we do it ourselves, which we could do for cheaper, we think, but it probably wouldn't be as good as if we went with the full project. Are we going to have to pay that money back? It took us a while. We got confirmation we would not. But then we started talking about the monies that are available still for construction, which is a couple $1 million. And we're like, well, we don't want to lose that money because we can do a project through IDOT with that money. And so a lot of discussions about funding. Do we move forward? In what capacity? We took it to the council, and the direction we're going now is what they think is in the best interest of the city.
Drainage issues, a narrow road, and a breaking down road are just a few of the issues that plague 5th Street Road. Mayor Welch says those will likely be the main priorities for the now partial scope of the project they'll be able to complete.
If I had to just summarize it, we got drainage issues out there that we got to fix. That was always part of the project. Still going to do that. We may be able to start doing some of that this year. But when we work through IDOT, they've got a letting schedule, and we've got to make sure we get our project approved by them because we're going to use some motor fuel tax money for redesign. They have to approve that. So once we get that approval, we get approval on the letting schedule. I'm hoping we're going to break ground on that thing by next year. I would hope that early to mid next year. but it really all depends on what their schedule looks like.
Mayor Welch does not anticipate widening the road nearly as much as they had anticipated. However, they plan to resurface with a lasting material that will likely get done over a couple of phases. He believes while the improvements are not what they had initially planned, they're still going to have a nice road when it's all said and done. News time is 19 minutes after the hour here on this Monday. Plenty more to get to, still to come on the WHOW Morning Show.
This is Scott Baum at Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. We believe in putting customers first. That's how we started, and it's why we go the extra mile for our customers. Looking for a new or used vehicle? We have transparent pricing for new and used cars, trucks, SUVs, and crossovers. See all our pricing and pictures online at your convenience. Or come in and visit our full-service team today at Clinton or Farmer City. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
News time is 20 minutes after the hour here on this Monday. Again, we stream to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin insurance agent in Clinton. Illinois lawmakers have missed their own self-imposed state budget deadline. Democratic leaders set today as the adjournment day, but a spending plan has yet to emerge. House Republicans, who say they have been left out of the negotiations, want a seat at the table. Representative Noreen Hammond of Macomb.
Our asks are simple. We want no new spending. We want to pay our bills on time and to support good fiscal measures and continue to fund the rainy day fund. We can get there, but only with true, genuine bipartisanship.
Jacksonville Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer says the days of getting a budget at the last minute with no time to review need to be over.
Government by the dark of night cannot continue to happen in the Illinois General Assembly. We have to bring it out into the public. We have to make sure the public understands where their dollars are being spent, how they're being spent, and what our priorities are here in the state of Illinois.
With both the House and Senate are scheduled to return to Springfield on Wednesday. The Illinois FFA convention is less than a month away.
So right now we're finalizing what our media friends love. A lot of our press releases for the winners that we already know. So really all those pieces that just have to fall in place right when convention takes place. So their picture on stage, their picture back in the Farm Credit Newsroom, attach that to the press release, and those that are working in the Farm Credit Newsroom can get the story and the message out about all of our successful FFA chapters and FFA members. So that's a little bit about what our summer interns are working on. Of course, they're also working on the schedule for the state quiz bowl competition, for the Farm Credit Newsroom, for the Courtesy Corps FFA chapters. We, of course, are working with the officers on their scripts. Their scripts have been written for well over a month now, and they've had multiple practices where they've gotten things in motion. We actually take yard paint and we paint the size of the stage in our backyard here at the FFA Center. We stack two coolers on top of each other. They're the podium, they're the makeshift podium. And the officers actually practice every convention session in the backyard on our makeshift stage. The officers, of course, are working on their retiring speeches. And of course, the rest of us are all putting together all the remaining pieces. Plaques are ordered, plaques have been checked, program is in progress, checking the program to the script, to what's out on the agenda.
The Illinois FFA's Mindy Bunselmeyer says the state convention is June 13th through 15th in Springfield. Planting is winding down in Illinois, and some post-application reminders are here from KJ Johnson at the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association.
So we are getting into that post-application season of a spray time. I know there's some still planting going on, but I think we saw with USDA's report, the vast majority of planting is going on. So we're going to get right into that post-application of spraying of different products. You know, we just want to try and remind listeners, retailers, and farmers, you know, look at these weather conditions coming up. And I know there might be some unfavorable conditions with higher winds. Don't take the chance to have that stuff move off product. We are trying to do the best job we are or can to show that we can keep those products where they need to be. Everything we try and remind people is just the first thing you have to do is read those label directions. See if there's any wind conditions that limits you what you can spray on timing of that. Also, find a good wind meter. You can go to Amazon or someplace and just find a good wind meter just to have in your cab to see what those conditions are. Also, check all your nozzles. Make sure you're using the right nozzles for the product. Sometimes you have a bigger nozzle or an air induction type of nozzle, so that product is going to reach the ground. The other thing is, make sure you're using the right surfactants and drift retardants for those products, and make sure that they mix very well. So we're going to try and have the best spray season as possible going here in the next couple weeks of post application.
More resources are available at ifca.com. Spring flowers fading? A horticulture expert at the University of Illinois Extension has some advice to ensure they're looking their best next season. In order to help spring bulbs thrive, the Extension's Ken Johnson says you should leave the foliage on the plants.
Plants need those leaves so they can photosynthesize and produce the food that the bulbs need in order to form flowers for the next year. If that foliage is cut off too early, mowed off too early, this can result in smaller, weaker bulbs that will gradually decline and eventually die out.
The flowers can be removed, but the leaves should stay until they have turned yellow and died back. Johnson says that can take several weeks for tulips and daffodils. He advises against tying up the foliage for a cleaner appearance, since that will reduce the amount of sun the plant gets.
So while we don't want to remove the leaves of the plants, it is a good idea to remove the old spent flowers from the plants, and this is going to help prevent the formation of seed pods. If we allow our plants to go to seed, that's going to be drawing off energy that the plants could be sending back to their bulbs.
Johnson adds it's also a good idea to fertilize your spring flowers. The Bears are exploring a move to neighboring Arlington Heights. That would leave Soldier Field along Chicago's lakefront without a major tenant and mean that the team would need a new stadium to play in. Will tax dollars or other government supports go to help the team move? It's an ongoing discussion at the State House, and Democrat Representative Marty Moylan says early talks this spring will carry over to the summer.
It would allow us time over the summer to create consensus with our members, the Chicago Bears, local officials, and business and labor leaders. We owe it to ourselves and our constituents to get this right.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are still left on the bonds issued to redo Soldier Field 20 years ago. Moylan is proposing a $3 fee on tickets sold at a new Bear stadium to help pay that down. The property tax assessment on the land purchased by the team for the new stadium is also being talked about. Legislation headed to the governor's desk addresses school bullying. The bill requires schools notify parents of a student who has been bullied within 24 hours of learning about the incident. Representative Margaret Croak of Chicago says that it's vital that the problem be tackled the right away.
Bullying is really no longer relegated to the schoolyard anymore. So when an incident may occur on a Friday morning and a school administrator is made aware of it, that child may be subject to bullying for another 48 hours before the school administrator comes back on Monday.
She says it's imperative kids get help right away, noting that being bullied can lead to suicide.
While this is a small change to a massive issue, I hope that regardless of party, that we may be able to come together to just prevent potentially one more death of a minor in the state of Illinois.
The measure also expands the official definition of bullying to include academic status, homelessness, pregnancy, and more. It still needs to be signed into law by the governor. Victims of deep fake porn and doxing would have a legal pathway to sue their perpetrators in Illinois under a pair of digital privacy measures that have so far received unanimous support in the General Assembly. House Bill 2954, which would allow victims of doxing to pursue civil litigation, needs only a signature from the governor to become law after clearing both chambers of the General Assembly unanimously. Doxing, as defined by House Bill 2954, occurs when an individual intentionally publishes another person's personal information without their consent. For an offense to qualify as doxing, the person publishing the information must have acted with intent to harm or harass the victim with knowledge or reckless disregard that it could lead to death, bodily injury, or stalking. Additionally, the published information must have caused the victim harm in some way, including economic injury or emotional distress. A person found by a court to have suffered from doxing would be eligible to recover damages and other relief, such as attorney's fees. The bill does create some exemptions for those publishing others' private information, including if the information was shared to report criminal activity or if it was shared to the news media and was constitutionally protected. News time, 29 minutes after the hour. Coverage of news brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason. In the words of President Biden, it went well. Mr. Biden referring to yesterday's phone call with House Speaker